Hello and welcome to today's session on building scalable migration practice for enterprise application as part of the AWS Innovate online conference. My name is Ahilan and I'm a partner solution architect with Amazon Web Services, AWS. In this session, we are going to cover the importance of building the migration practice, the ingredients of a scalable migration practice, and how tools and AWS programs can help further scale the migration practice for successful migrations. We hope that by the end of our time together, you will be able to build and scale your migration practice to help more enterprise customers migrate their application to AWS Cloud. So let's get started. Before we can build a migration practice that are scalable for enterprise workloads, we need to first understand why enterprises are migrating to the cloud so that we can ensure our migration practice meets their needs. Here are some common drivers that are motivating enterprises to move to the cloud. Agility, the ability to provision infrastructure in minutes, deploy your code, and go live in hours had helped enterprises improve workforce productivity by 30 to 70%. This is seen as one of the main reasons enterprises are moving to the cloud. The move to the cloud for some enterprises also means consolidating their data centers. We are seeing more of this in acquisitions and long years of infrastructure sprawl. Enterprises are also moving to the cloud to empower them to handle large-scale compute-intensive workloads. The ability to horizontally scale on demand to meet compute requirements had benefited enterprises tremendously. Some enterprises are reimagining their businesses with technology. The cloud acts as a step towards digital transformation and innovation. They now can focus on areas that matter to their business and allow the heavy lifting to be handled by AWS. Last but not least, enterprises are moving to the cloud to save costs. The pay-as-you-use model with added volume discount had helped enterprises significantly lower infrastructure costs as over-provisioning are no longer required. Other areas of cost reductions are also seen in reduced number of operation resources and data center hosting costs. Here are some successful enterprise customers that had migrated to AWS Cloud and had benefited from the move. Guardian, an insurance company in Australia, had improved agility and reduced infrastructure provisioning from weeks to just 1 to 2 days. Wheezy, a packaging and recycling company in Australia, had managed to improve the performance of their SAP production systems by 46% after moving to the AWS Cloud. Enel, a power company, and Coca-Cola had achieved tremendous cost saving by moving their workloads to AWS Cloud. Last but not least, News Corp, a media company, had reduced their data center footprint by consolidating in the cloud, and they returned more than 100 million back to the business. Having understood the drivers that are motivating the enterprises to move to the cloud, it is also important to note the stages of how enterprises are adopting the cloud. From our experience, there are 4 stages in the enterprise cloud adoption journey. The first stage is the project stage. In the project stage, enterprises are running projects to experience benefits from the cloud. AWS is evaluated and vetted on a project-by-project basis. The second stage is the foundation stage. After experiencing the benefits of the cloud, customers then build the foundation to scale their cloud adoption. This includes creating a landing zone, a cloud center of excellence, operation model, and a security and compliance readiness. AWS becomes a proven choice and is often used for new projects. The third stage is the migration stage. In this stage, the customers undertake 2 parts. New applications will continue to flow through the cloud-native part and be built for the cloud. The existing applications on their on-premise data centers will flow through the second part, which is the retire technical debt. A migration will need to be planned and executed to bring those applications to the cloud. The last stage is the reinvention stage. In this stage, the customer's applications are already running on AWS Cloud. The customers now perform continuous reiteration on the application and architecture to improve performance, reduce operation overheads, and optimize costs. Knowing the enterprise cloud adoption journey, let's now look at why is it important for us to build a migration practice. Having a migration practice will allow us to migrate enterprises at scale. Part of the requirements of a migration practice is to have a repeatable methodology that can be used to migrate various kinds of workloads at any scale. Besides migrating at scale, a migration practice can also accelerate migrations to the cloud. The components of the migration practice, like well-defined methodology, migration tools, and experienced Cloud Center of Excellence team, empowers and speeds up the delivery of the migration at each phase. Having a migration practice can also reduce the risk of the migration using a well-defined methodology together with the migration plan that instills security and compliance throughout the entire migration helps reduce the customer's risk in the migration. A migration practice that is vetted by AWS Migration Competency can help partners gain recognition and further grow their line of business in cloud migration. As a result of successful cloud migration, through the well-established migration practice, partners will earn the trust of their customers, which will allow them to expand their influence into other areas of their customers' business. Now, before jumping into further details, let's take a few minutes looking at what does a migration practice actually involves. At the estate, you need to invest the time with the customer to evaluate their readiness. This will require significant participation with the customer at will. You should not accept the migration project until after this step is completed. There should not be a scope of work required at this stage. After the customer's maturity and readiness is being assessed and you have accepted to take on the project, the migration team will lead a portfolio discovery and migration planning phase to deploy, collect, and analyze data about the application and build a project plan. At this point, the customer can still back out, and you can choose not to move forward. Many of the guiding decisions and design patterns made during this phase guide the migration factory phases. If there is an agreement, a formal agreement statement of work should be signed to move forward. During the application design phase, the customer as well as you are fully committed and entering into what is called the migration factory. This is the first part of the migration factory cycle. At this stage, we are taking a set of applications and fitting them into a design pattern while planning the execution of the migration into AWS. Moving into the application validation and migration phase, we are actually migrating the application using their respective design patterns. Testing and exception criteria must be met before the application is put into production. The resulting application move to AWS then becomes part of a growing set of applications in the new operating model pool. This cycle is repeated until more and more apps joining the output pool until complete. Finally, operations is the resulting stage of the migration being complete and can only be formalized when the customer has accepted the responsibility for all the operations either by their own capability or by contracting an AWS managed service partner to handle the ongoing production operation capability. The AWS Migration Practice under the Migration Acceleration Program MAP consists of 3 phases. The first phase is the assessment phase. In this phase, we carry out a migration readiness assessment to assess the customer's environment and evaluate their readiness to adopt the cloud. We also perform a rapid discovery on the customer's environment, and the output is used to build a directional business case to help the customer understand the rough total cost of ownership, TCO, of running their applications in the cloud. The business case acts as a catalyst to receive a mandate from the customers to proceed with the migration, planning, and readiness phase. The migration readiness assessment's output is then flowed to the Migration Readiness and Planning phase, which is the second phase of the migration practice. In this phase, we build a detailed migration plan to address the gaps identified in the Migration Readiness Assessment phase. A detailed application and profiling activity is carried out to understand the application in depth. Besides that, we also plan the migration foundation essentials like the landing zone, the operating model, Cloud Center of Excellence, and security as part of the delivery. The information gathered from this phase is then used to derive a detailed business case, the migration scope of work, and the migration plan. The customer will need to sign off the scope of work to proceed to the next phase. Now having a migration plan and the approval of the customer, the next phase is the application migration phase. Here is where the gathered resources and the migration factory are used to migrate the application to AWS Cloud in waves. Before jumping into the details of the Migration Readiness Assessment, MRA, it is important to first understand the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, CAF. The AWS Cloud Adoption Framework organizes guidance into 6 areas of focus called perspectives. Each perspective covers a distinct responsibility owned or managed by a functionally related stakeholder. In general, the business, people, and governance perspective focuses on business capabilities, while the platform security and operations perspective focuses on the technical capabilities. It is important to understand the CAF before carrying out a MRA. The Migration Readiness Assessment is carried out as part of the assessment phase. The Migration Readiness Assessment is a process of assessing the customer's current state and identifying their cloud adoption readiness gaps. The assessment is carried out in a planned workshop together with the customer's stakeholder through a set of questionnaires that are aligned with the cloud adoption framework. The MRA provides an opportunity to listen, learn, and influence the customer's stakeholders. Besides that, its main aim is to understand the customer's environment better and to determine the scope of the migration readiness and planning engagement. Here is a summary of the outcome of the Migration Readiness Assessment. It is very important for the customer to have consensus of their current state and be aware of their cloud readiness gaps earlier in the migration to prevent roadblocks. As for the partner, the MRA helps them build trust with the customer and gain insights of the customer's work processes and environment. Having completed the Migration Readiness Assessment, it is time to precisely plan for the migration through the Migration Readiness and Planning phase, MRP. The migration engagement flow, which is part of the migration plan, consists of 8 work streams of sprint delivered through agile methodology. These work streams focuses on closing the MRA gaps, planning the customer's cloud environment using the AWS best practices, and building a repeatable migration methodology called the Migration Factory. It is important to note that the actual migration only happens in the next phase after the MRP scope of work has been signed off by the customer. Here's the summary of the outcomes of the Migration Readiness and Planning phase. The discovery and the planning covers the detailed application profiling, which provides data on application performance metrics, utilization, and integration. The output of the discovery phase is used to derive a detailed business case for the migration. The landing zone is the customer's virtual data center in the cloud, which contains the target area for the migrated application, network connectivity, access management, and account structure. It is important to plan the landing zone using the AWS landing zone best practices. Security has always been job zero in AWS. Hence, ensuring security and compliance is adequately planned throughout the migration is important to reduce the risk of the migration. The MRP also helps the partner build a cloud center of excellence with the customer's team, and this team will help extend their current operating model from on-premises to the cloud. The Cloud Center of Excellence team will get the relevant migration experience from the AWS trainings and also by migrating the proof of concept application decided at the start of the migration. This will also help the team verify the capability of the migration factory. Last but not least, the main aim of the MRP phase is to deliver a detailed migration plan so that the customer can successfully migrate their application to AWS Cloud. In the application migration phase, the applications are finally migrated to the AWS Cloud using the migration factory as per the migration plan. In this phase, the application undergo 3 sub-phases which are activate, execute, and optimize. In the activate phase, the backlogs of the discovered applications are prioritized. The applications are also grouped based on their integration needs and organization priorities. The migration strategy and the migration success criteria are then defined for each application. Simultaneously, the foundation of the landing zone setup and ops integration setup are carried out by the identified Cloud Center of Excellence team. Having set up the foundation, the proof of concept applications selected earlier will first be migrated using the migration factory to test the capability of the migration factory. The other selected applications will follow once the factory is tested to be working fine. In the execute phase, the selected application will undergo 6 stages, which are discover, design, build, integrate, validate, and cutover. At this phase, the applications are migrated to AWS landing zones, integrated with other applications in the cloud or on-premises, validated using tools before cutover. The last phase of the application migration phase is the optimize phase. Here, the applications have been migrated to AWS Cloud, are continuously iterated on to improve performance, reduce operation overheads, and optimize costs. Applications are normally re-platformed or refactored to leverage more on cloud services to improve performance and reduce operation overheads. As for cost optimization, the instances are carefully right-sized and using the performance metrics data and by purchasing reserved instance, which is a usage commitment plan. Here's an overview of the AWS migration practice phases leading up to the application migration phase. It is important to know the deliverables at each phase as it is a requirement to the next phase of the migration practice. Besides that, there are key foundation works that require to be carried out at each sprint prior to the application migration. It is also important to understand that applications are migrated in waves based on the migration plan. Tracking and traceability of the entire migration will ensure successful and risk-free migration. Now let's talk about the secret sauce of a good migration practice. The first important ingredient to have in a migration practice is a migration team, or often known as a Cloud Center of Excellence. This team does not necessarily require to be a dedicated resource, but the roles need to be defined explicitly. The number of people that assumes a role depends on the scale of the migration. Each role will then be part of the migration activity team. Defining the migration team early is key to ensure accountability and migration success. It is also very important to continuously develop the team's skill set and knowledge in AWS, which can be achieved through AWS trainings and certification. The second important ingredient to have in a migration practice is a clear definition of migration phases and their outcomes supported by standardized documentation. You are now aware that the AWS migration practice has well-defined phases with clear outcomes for each phase. As for the documentation piece, some of the important documents to build and standardize are the scope of work, the system architecture design documents, the security and compliance documents, the RACI document, and the project plan. It is highly recommended that partners define similar phases as per the AWS migration practice and set the delivery outcomes of each phase clearly. The third most important ingredient to have in a migration practice is to build automation around the migration practice. Landing zone, config baseline deployment, and EC2 instances creation are some areas that should be automated initially through CloudFormation templates. There are various other AWS services like auto-scaling, OpsWorks, step functions, code pipeline, code deploy, code build, and code commit that can be leveraged to build automation. Besides that, there are also third-party ISV tools like Terraform, Chef, Puppet, Ansible, and Bamboo that should also be considered. When selecting an automation tool, try to reuse a tool that the customer is familiar with to reduce the learning curve. Building automation in the migration practice can accelerate the phases of the migration and minimize errors due to human interventions. The last most important ingredient to have is to use migration tool to accelerate the phases of the migration. Migration tools should be built in as part of the migration factory. Having the secret sauce, now how do we scale the migration practice? As the migration tools are an important ingredient in the migration practice, it is clear we cannot scale the migration practice without it. Tools can help accelerate the phases of the migration, discover, plan, track, and visualize the migration, increase accuracy in discovery and application profiling, automate migration of servers, databases, and data to the cloud, and perform migration validation. It is very important to know the limits of the tools and select the right tool based on the customer's requirement and environment. AWS maintains a list of migration competent technology partner tools under the Migration Partner Solution page. These are tools that are recommended to be used for your migrations. To accelerate migration to AWS, there are two groups of tools that can be leveraged as part of the migration factory. The first group of tools are the AWS Migration Services. In the assessment phase, the AWS Application Discovery Service can be used to perform rapid discovery. This service supports both agent and agentless deployments, and it can be used without charge. In the application migration phase, there are several AWS migration services that can be leveraged to migrate application, server, database, and data. AWS Server Migration Service is an agentless tool used to migrate virtualized server environment to AWS Cloud. On the other hand, the AWS Database Migration Service is an agentless service that supports homogeneous and heterogeneous database migration to AWS Cloud. For pure data migration, import-export services and Snowball can be leveraged with minimum cost. Last year, AWS launched the AWS Migration Hub, which acts as a centralized dashboard to visualize, plan, and track migrations. The Migration Hub integrates well with AWS Migration Services and other third-party ISV tools to track the status of all the migrations to AWS Cloud. In the operations phase, there are several tools that can be used like Amazon CloudWatch for monitoring and centralized logging, AWS CloudFormation for automation, and AWS Managed Service to ensure business as usual. It is important to re-highlight here that tools are used to accelerate the phases of the migration and reduce the risk of the migration. The second group of migration tools are the AWS third-party ISV migration partner tools. There are a lot of migration partner tools from different phases of the migration. However, the tools listed here are the AWS Migration Competent Technology Partner tools. In the assessment phase, tools like Cloud Health, TSO Logic, Cloudscape, Dynatrace, New Relic, and Cloudomize can help perform rapid discovery. Some of these tools can also suggest instance right-sizing, which can help in TCO analysis and building the business case. In the readiness and planning stage, the same sets of tools can be leveraged for detailed application discovery, application prioritization, grouping, and integration mapping. In the application migration phase, the partner migration tools can perform server and database migration. Cloud Endure and Cloud Velox is an agent-based tool that supports physical and virtualized server migration to AWS Cloud. Trinity, on the other hand, can be leveraged for database migration. Trinity supports a huge range of databases, inclusive of legacy databases. In the operation phase, Journey-Trace, New Relic, and App Dynamic can be used for migration validation and application performance monitoring. Some of these migration partners had worked together to build integration for data to flow from their tool to a migration tool in the next phase. Cloud Endure and TSO Logic is an example where discovery and planning data from TSO Logic can be imported to Cloud Endure for the migration. It is also important to use some of these tools together with the AWS Migration Services for better tracking of the migration and to further save costs. The other mechanism to scale the migration practice further is to leverage on AWS Migration Programs. AWS have two main migration programs, the Partner Migration Program, PMP, and the AWS Migration Acceleration Program, MAP. These programs can be leveraged depending on the scale of the migration. The Partner Migration Program has four main offerings or benefits to the customer. Through the program, the customer could engage with an AWS Migration Competency partner to deliver the migration. This will ensure a higher success rate for the migration. Customers can also leverage a robust set of tools to automate and accelerate common migration scenarios. Through the program, customers will also be entitled for enablement programs for IT professionals to understand and execute migration. Last but not least, AWS will make an investment into the migration to help the customer deal with the additional expenses during the migration. In the Migration Acceleration Program, MAP, AWS is taking a holistic approach to the migrations and providing the customers with a migration methodology where we are helping customers execute legacy migration in a methodological way. We also provide a robust set of tools to automate and accelerate common migration scenarios. Through the program, customers can also engage a large and growing ecosystem of vetted partners that have the experience and skills needed to execute and deliver successful migrations. A growing specialty practice around migration in our professional services team, who's harvesting the various patterns and best practices, can further help the customer in niche areas of their application migration. The program also provides training and enablement aimed at helping IT professionals understand and execute migration. Last but not least, AWS provides an investment model where we contribute with financial benefits to help with the additional expense during the migration. For more information on the migration programs, please reach out to your partner developer manager. Now that you have built and enhanced your migration practice, it is time to validate it with AWS. The AWS Competency Program was designed to highlight APN partners who have demonstrated technical proficiency and proven customer success in specialized solution areas. The Migration Competency Program is part of the AWS Competency Program. Under the Migration Competency Program, there are three kinds of partner competencies, which are the Migration Competency Consulting Partner, the Migration Competency Delivery Partner, and the Migration Competency Technology Partner. It is important to validate your migration practice or tool with the competency program to ensure your practice complies to our best practices. Besides that, all migration competent partners will be recognized as they are published on the AWS Migration Partner Solution page. This will help customers right-pick the partner for their migration to ensure successful migrations. There are other more significant benefits from being an AWS Migration Competent Partner. Here is to name a few. It is an exclusive competency and in many cases acts as a differentiation factor in today's competitive world. Partners will also receive methodology and training support through personalized one-to-one workshop. Partners are eligible to purchase migration tools at a discounted rate. Competent partners can also request for professional service guidance and support in niche areas of the migration. partner will be given access to a migration toolkit, which is a digital library of migration artifacts to build and continuously enhance on their migration practice. Competent partners may also receive customer engagements through the migration programs. Last but not least, AWS Marketing will help promote the partners' migration initiatives and skills through integrated partner campaigns. In conclusion, it is important to build a migration practice to accelerate and handle migration at scale. Migration practice should be driven by an experienced Cloud Center of Excellence team to deliver successful migration. Ensuring knowledge growth of this team on the AWS platform is essential to ensure the quality of the migration delivery. It is also key to build automations in repeatable areas of the migration practice to reduce operation overheads, minimize errors, and accelerate the phases of the migration. Migration tools should be incorporated as part of the migration factory for similar reasons. Know and do not forget to leverage on the AWS migration programs, especially when you are performing a migration at scale that meets the program's requirements. For more details on the requirements, reach out to your partner developer manager. Having built and enhanced a migration practice, it is very important to validate it via the AWS Migration Competency program to ensure your migration practice complies to our best practices. Last but not least, you are not alone in this journey. Reach out to the AWS partner team when required. AWS also has a wide partner ecosystem to help you focus on your success and take full advantage of all the business benefits that AWS has to offer. To learn more about APN partners and find the right one that fits your needs, please visit the AWS APN booth at our showcase. You can also attend our instructor-led classes by qualified AWS instructor and learn how to design, deploy, and operate highly available, cost-effective, and secure application on AWS. Validate your technical expertise with AWS and use practice exams to help you prepare for your AWS certification. Finally, I would like to thank you for attending today and sticking it out until the very end of the presentation. Thank you.